Live from Las Vegas, this is NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat.
Hello and welcome to the 2017 NAB Show, broadcasting live from Las Vegas. I'm trying to get my voice going here.
Sounds very sexy, Ryan.
Exactly. All right. Well, that's how I roll. So, all right. I'm Ryan Salazar. We have Brian Seth Hurst and the amazing Jeanette DePatty. How you guys doing?
Hi,
We're doing great.
Thanks.
We're excited about the show, getting started, and
It's great to be back.
it is great to be back. And it's actually very exciting to go and walk the floor and watch old friends come back, but every once in a while you see a pocket of somebody new, and there's so much activity in the AR VR pavilion now, and you can feel over there, you can feel the industry start to mature.
Yes.
And so it's great. You can always tell what's going on when they're, but Jeanette and I have been doing this for
God's years.
So, I mean, we've walked the floor a lot together when things are being constructed, and it's just actually, it's great to do that, and you can kind of feel what's going to happen this year, and it's good. I think that there are years where it's a little leap, and then there are years where they're a quantum leap, and now we're at 8K, and we're VR cameras that are actually shooting at 12K,
it's amazing.
and 1,000 frames per second, and you're going, wow, this could be a quantum leap.
I'm a total kid in a candy store here, and there's so much technology that I don't understand, but you obviously...
Jeanette can explain everything.
Yeah, so Jeanette is the knower of all information.
Oh, no, don't set me up for that. Oh my goodness,
Right.
I can't.
So talk about what you're doing at the show.
So I am trend casting at the show. I'm here also with Storytech, and we are looking at the trends on the show floor, and we're doing corporate briefings, and we're also going to be out on the floor looking at new technology and figuring out what's real and what is PR puffery.
Right.
Because I love technology, but I am also a skeptic. So I lived in Missouri for a while, which is the show me state. So
Exactly.
I want to see it work.
All right, so the ad pavilion, I guess it involves like programmatic type stuff, analytics.
Yes, it's all about big data, because it's really not about ratings anymore. It's about what data can you get on that consumer, how can you target the marketing as well as the programming specifically for that person, and how can you follow them everywhere. So if they're watching TV and they're like, oh, it's a commercial, and they look on their cell phone, you want to hit them on the cell phone with the same commercial. You cannot escape.
Exactly.
That's what big data is all about.
All right, so I'm like sandwiched in between two great people here, because Brian is involved with NAB Show as well. So let's talk about what you're doing.
Right, so Storytech Immersive is actually a sister company to Storytech. And Storytech Immersive is all about AR, augmented reality, virtual reality, and mixed reality. What Storytech Immersive is doing at the show, aside from what we're doing at NAB Show Live, which is all the panels that have to do with AR and VR, is a complete program in the North Hall called in the AR VR Pavilion on the VR stage. Did I get all that right now? On the VR stage, this is called the AR VR Content Sessions.
Okay.
And the difference between that program and a lot of other things is these are the people that are actually involved day to day, hands rolled up, sleeves rolled up, hands deep in actually making VR, because there's a lot of hype about VR, there's a lot of people talking about VR.
There's plenty of people making noise about VR.
Yes, that's right.
There's way more of those than
That's
people
right, and we're not
making
talking
VR.
immersive audio noise. We're
But what's interesting though is AR VR, it's stuck. So last year it started really getting chatted about a lot at the show. And everybody wonders, is it gonna go off the wayside the next show around? And it's not the case. It doesn't appear to be that way. It's really becoming mainstream.
So many verticals. It's not just entertainment. It's medicine. It's education. It's architecture. It's engineering. It's even therapy, medical therapy. They're for quadriplegics and people suffering from post-traumatic stress syndrome.
Well, and I think too with AR, which is likely to surpass VR eventually, this is going to be the new interface, the new human interface with data and technology. So we're going to be able to use gestures, and we're going to be able to see our data in front of us in a new way. And I think when you think of it in those terms, you see how big this really can be, like super big. Like
Awesome.
Godzilla big.
So my favorite part of NAB Show, because I come from the the post-production world, really. So is post-production world and South Hall. I love South Hall because it's all about post. There's a lot of storage solutions, workflow, media asset management, software. There's Adobe and Maxon and all those guys. That's where my life is over there. But I want to learn a lot about AR and VR.
Well, the thing is that post-production in VR is like you're getting all these new plugins. It used to be that we had to make stuff up. It used to be that we literally had to hack solutions together, and to some extent we still do. But now you have Metal as a plugin for Adobe Premiere, and you have 360 Rise now coming out with a whole 360 editing solution. Actually, Michael will be on the show to talk a little bit about that.
Great.
So it's been an adventure, but now being able to post in 360, meaning you can actually be in the headset and post, that's what's coming, and that's much easier for filmmakers.
That's amazing. So go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and when you have like information overload, like you cannot deal with any more technical data, then you can just go to the aerial pavilion and fly a drone around. That's always like a little relaxing. They have a net there, so you can't break anything or have to, whip out your credit card. So that's good. But it's really fun to just fly these things around. And drones have really come a long way now. They have AI integrated into them and
crash protection,
crash
avoidance.
But you can also like set your flight path. In fact, tonight you can take a session where you can learn to drive your drone at night. I was just like, well, that sounds cool. It's like
awesome.
4:00 when you're actually awake, and you could be out there, with a beer driving a drone.
I was with Andrew Hancock, and he has a drone, and he's very, very good at drone.
Yeah,
so we were on this beach, and the drone is gone. It's up in the clouds, and it's photographing the sun up in the clouds, like when you wait in a plane, right? And I'm like, I didn't pay for it, so it doesn't matter to me where it goes. But I'm like, where is this thing going, and how do you know where it is? And he's like, no, it always comes back to you. It's like a boomerang. It's like a carrier pigeon.
And they have following capabilities now too, so you can set up sort of the magic sensor in your car, and you can drive down the street, and the drone will just follow you like up to 35 miles an hour.
Okay, this is getting scary.
Which in Los Angeles is as fast as you ever get, by the way. But yeah.
Well, so another thing that I love about NAB show is the people that you meet. I've met so many people here. It's like a family reunion, including you guys. Every time we come here, everybody gets back together. Everybody's from all over the world. And one guy that I ran into this morning is Philip Grossman. We know each other probably for about 5 years now. How you doing, Phil?
I'm doing great.
So Philip Grossman produced a documentary on Chernobyl. And I think it's amazing. You've got the most man hours at the Chernobyl site, so that's why you're glowing green when you're in a dark room, right?
Yep, over 100 days there now.
Exactly. So
he still has all his teeth. I thought.
So go ahead and talk about it.
So it really started as around my 40th birthday, so my wife said it was my midlife crisis. I decided to leave corporate America, and I was a photographer and sort of budding cinematographer, and decided I was going to go do something. And my wife said, focus on your photography. So I started meeting with gallery owners, and they said, your work is great, but you don't have a cohesive story. And of course, my first thought was, what the heck is a cohesive story? So I started, I put my engineering hat on, which is my background, and started looking at other photographers and how they became well known. And one of them was, shoot something that nobody has, or be the first one to do it. So Chernobyl just sort of kept coming up. It was the 25th anniversary. I grew up near 3 Mile Island. My family's from the Ukraine. Last stop before coming to America. So all those things sort of came together. So I managed to figure out how to get there in 2011, and thought it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And I've gone back and started thinking about doing a documentary, and it's taken a long time, but I'm happy to announce that I have an agreement to work with the Science Channel and have a program this summer with them.
But not only are you going to have the program, but you're hosting the program.
Yeah, I'm hosting the program. I never thought, 2011 when I went there, that I'd be the host. But evidently now I'm going to be the host, and talking about drones, so I have the distinction of being the first person ever to fly a drone in the Chernobyl region in 2011, 2012. And that's before you had the GPS where it came back to you. It was, you hope it came back. And I also have the distinction of probably being the first person to crash a drone in Chernobyl.
Oh dear.
Wow.
Well, I think comparatively speaking, that was a little disaster.
Yeah.
Right. So I've seen behind the scenes photos and everything. It's quite amazing, Brian and Jeanette. It's like it's wild that you've been there so many times. And
thank you.
I'm just curious as to the precautions that you have to take, because you see some photographs, it looks incredibly eerie.
Yeah.
And,
it is.
And it's like a restricted area, right? You have to pass through a bunch of stuff to get into it.
So when I first started going, it was very difficult to gain access, and it took time and energy and effort to deal with the right government officials to gain access. Over the years, and with the 30th anniversary last year, it's sort of become a budding tourism business now in the Ukraine.
Wow.
Which is odd, but just bus tours and people going. But because of the amount of time and energy that I've spent in building these relationships, I've actually been able to get inside of control room number 4 when the accident happened.
Did you have to wear any protective clothing?
Yeah, so you wear a heavy cotton wool suit and respirator and a dosimeter, and everything is sort of measured. But the funny thing is, in the village of Chernobyl, which is about 8 miles from the reactor, the radiation levels are about the same as they are here.
So that's where the I'm sorry about that. That's where the tourism is, in the village?
Well, they go to the village. That's where you stay, because it's still within the zone. One of the interesting facts is that what they call the zone of exclusion or zone of alienation. Most people don't realize it's the size of the state of Rhode Island.
Wow.
No one officially lives there, although there were at one time were several hundred. It's now down to a handful of resettlers that still live there. I've met them and spoken with them and interviewed them. One of them, Grandpa Sava and his wife Elena, he just passed away at age 84. He moved back 10 days after the accident. So radiation is one of those things that's really sort of misunderstood. I've been to Fukushima as well, because everybody goes, do you go to Fukushima? And I went to Fukushima, and I took my dosimeter, and I measured from the time I left to the time I landed. I actually received more radiation on the airplane ride there and back than I did spending 10 days on the ground in Fukushima.
Huh.
So people who fly a lot, like myself, you actually get a lot higher radiation exposure in the airplane than you do in some place like Chernobyl.
So in the show that you're doing, are you dispelling a lot of the myths that are around this now?
So we're going to explore those. I don't want to get into too many details, but we're going to look at what happened, the sort of the mythology around what happened, what actually happened, and I've learned a lot. It's been I'm a scientist engineer by training, and so for me it's been a complete learning experience. I think that's why I dove into it so much, because I did not know anything about it.
You know what's interesting is that there is a fascination with, we're talking about broadcasting and we're talking about storytelling. There is a fascination with disaster.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sure.
Just this thing that wraps you. We're working on a specific thing right now that's a disaster took place in the early 1900s, and the globe is still, people around the world are still fascinated, and the more you talk, it's like the more you want to ask him questions. Can't wait for the show.
The pictures, when you see them, it's like almost like you went into a hotel, right?
Yeah.
And everybody disappeared.
Yep.
But everything's still left in place.
Yep. They literally
it's
up and left.
unbelievable.
They had 3 hours to evacuate 50,000 people from the city of Pripyat, and the stuff is remaining there. In fact, there are cigarette butts still on the tables, the forks. I know when one family left from one of the villages, because it says May 3rd, the last calendar date that was on the tear-off calendar. So, but for me, it's been combining my passion of cinematography with my day job in the broadcast world. So it's really kind of been an interesting journey.
Wow.
And I think that's one of the beautiful things. You were talking about the people that you meet here at the NAB. And I think one of the beautiful things is that as broadcasters, we bring the world to the rest of the world. We bring these experiences to you that you couldn't have any other way. And I think that's part of what makes us a family of broadcasters.
Even now, we're streaming.
Yeah,
And so many booths are streaming from from the floor.
It's
amazing.
It's a bandwidth war out there, though.
Exactly.
You have to beg for every bit. Because there's so much streaming going on that the amount of data that is flowing in and out of this place right now is astronomical.
So Brian, of course you're involved with the AR and VR pavilion. Is there anything really special to you on the floor, like in South or Central or North?
Well,
other than that?
first of all, to watch the maturity of some of the companies, what's come up.
Oh, sure.
And so, and they're all the way everything is positioned, lenses are there, post-production software is there. Even though I think John is in Central Hall, but Ozo is over there. And there's such a rich program that the very things that will be talked about on stage, the people who are attending will just be able to walk right to the booth and ask any more questions that they have. So there are a couple of young startups that are there, but you can watch a couple of the maturity. So you've got cameras, you've got the new Yi camera that is actually competing with GoPro.
Wow.
And has a partnership with 360 Rise now. And then you've got Antenna Lenses is on the floor. They were not here before.
Oh, one other thing I just thought of is Facebook Live is actually here at NAB. They have a pavilion.
I know. I really want their marketing budget because it must be like epic.
Like Google's even here too.
I know. It's really exciting. And if you really want to see like what's up and coming, I strongly recommend you head over to the Sprocket area.
Yes. Yeah.
That's where there's these tiny little booths from these, startup companies, and every single person you talk to is a genius. Like every single one.
Right.
You can spend, like, your head will be like pounding after because there's so much impressive data that
Yes,
you can
Sprocket's an amazing program. We're good friends with Harry Glazier, the founder of Sprocket, and it's so cool to see startups because it's a small idea that somebody had, and then they come here, and then some large company comes and possibly makes a deal with them on the show floor.
It does happen.
Which I've seen happen. Last year, a multi-million-dollar deal happened. I can't say who it was, but like that happens here. It's amazing. It's so cool. It's like Shark Tank, but like right here,
And I think that people have the idea that it's all big companies now and there's no opportunity. But there still is opportunity in the broadcast market for those small, brilliant guys. They find a need, they meet the need, and by God, they're acquired by somebody huge, and then they get a really fancy car. That's what happens usually.
All right,
but the car is connected, and you actually stream live from the car.
And the Ford, they're having a competition for the connected car in the Ford booth. It's so cool.
That's great. So what other than what you're involved in and what Brian's involved in, is there something special on the show floor for you?
Well, I mean, this connected car thing is pretty cool. So there's all of these different companies competing to create content around this connected Ford car. And I think that's also part of the autonomous vehicle thing. So I think that's really neat. And then, of course, just the connected pavilion, the IP connected pavilion, and seeing how things talk to each other. I mean, it's always a team effort in broadcasting and in technology and with people. So.
All right, cool. Well, Philip Grossman, it was excellent having you on the show.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I'm sure we'll catch up this week.
Most definitely. I think you'll have some of my coworkers on eventually at some point in time.
Oh,
from
yeah.
Imagine,
We've got Charlie on the show.
Yep. Perfect.
Cool. All right. This has been another edition of NAB Show Live. This is the first one on Sunday. I'm so excited that we're going to have 40 hours of programming this week. It's going to be so exciting.
I'm exhausted already.
Exactly. I got to get my voice back before tomorrow. I think I'm going to pull it off, guys. We'll see you soon here on NAB Show Live.
This is Tammy Dobruns from Master Control at WPLG TV in South Florida. I've been here for 33 years, and you are watching the NAB Show Live.
Hi, everyone. I'm meteorologist Craig Adams from CBS 6 WRGB TV in Albany, New York, the world's very first television station. You're watching NAB Show Live.
Howdy, I'm Jack Harris, a quasi-journalist with News Radio 970 WFLA, Tampa Bay. You're watching NAB Show Live.
I know broadcasters will continue to find opportunity in the choices we make. Choices that allow broadcasters to continue serving the American people.
you at the 2017 NAB show.
Goodbye, everyone.
Yeah.
Live from Las Vegas, this is NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat.
Hello and welcome to NAB Show Live. I'm your host, Ryan Salazar, and today we have a really special guest. I call them all special, but you are really special, especially to New Tech. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Good to be here.
All right, so we have Steve Vinton. Talk about where you work and what you do.
I work for Penn Trafford High School, which is about 20 minutes outside of Pittsburgh. So I came a long way to be here, and been a television production and movie production teacher there for about 7 years.
Okay, so I'm fairly new to New Tech, a couple years. We've been using their technology. We're actually broadcasting with the amazing NDI technology and the IP series stuff. Unbelievable technology.
It really is.
It's amazing how broadcast has evolved over the last, just couple of years. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
So how did you get to meet New Tech?
Well, when I started, I was trying to build a studio basically from scratch, and obviously the public school area, every dollar counts. So I needed something that was affordable and something that was easy to use for the students. Deer in the headlights. We didn't want to do that, so I found a TriCaster and started. I think it was a 350 model back then, SD. And since then, we've graduated up through a couple different models, and just recently, about 2 months ago, we purchased an 8000.
All right, so talk about your experience as a film and television producer.
It's been a blast. Every day, it's not the same thing. It's not history or math or anything like that. Not that there's anything wrong with those.
Right.
But it's so different every day that it just makes it a blast to be involved with.
So how many students do you work with on a regular basis?
120 throughout the year. Yeah, 6 different sections of classes. We start with an intro class, and then by the time they get to a senior level, they're in a TV 3 or a film 3 production type class where they're producing their own stuff.
Great. So as far as technology goes, are the students learning how to connect the hardware and all that, or is it more of actually functioning and working with it, with the software and everything?
A little bit of both. I mean, we're not tearing down the control room and rebuilding it from scratch every year, but they know how to, from start to finish, with a tripod and miking somebody up and setting up a camera, various different models of it. We don't get too involved in the engineering side of the networking for the TriCaster and all the different NDI inputs.
Right.
But they know enough to be dangerous for sure.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, I come from an engineering background. Okay. I had my first studio. I was 12 years old in my house.
Oh wow!
And that was audio. I thought audio was my calling.
Yeah.
I really did. I ended up on the radio at one point, and produced like radio spots and stuff, and then did audio post and video. I absolutely love now, and this is what we do as Broadcast Beat for NAB Show Live. It's so exciting, and all right, so. How do you guys, you broadcast your television, your students' show every day, or how often?
We do a live morning announcement show. Actually, we just competed in a competition at Robert Morris University, which is just outside of Pittsburgh, and won Best Morning Announcement Show. So pretty proud of that. That was a new development that just happened on Thursday. But we go live every morning using a TriCaster. We have a studio with a 3-camera feed. We can do live weather from outside using NDI. We can do a remote from the auditorium or the science lab where something cool's going on. It's controlled chaos, but we have a good time every morning.
All right, so speaking of NDI, let's get into that a little bit. So I was configuring our control room. We had it in Fort Lauderdale, the entire setup behind us here.
Okay.
We had it, my friend and I, Tim, we were setting everything up, and we're configuring everything, and I'm terminating, as old school in me, I'm terminating all these STI cables. And I talked to Jorge from New Tech, and he's like, "What are you doing, Ryan?" I'm like, "Well, I have to terminate these. I have to put these into the Blackmagic video router and do this, do that, terminate all these cables." And Jorge's like, "No, you don't have to do any of that." So it turns out in the end, I think I have 4 SDIs going into the system, 4 SDIs coming out. And then I've got an IP, like basically an IP ingest piece of hardware to basically inject our SDI cameras to go into the network. So
it's a lot of letters,
making them networkable. It's amazing. So how was your transition, or did you have SDI in the first place?
For the last couple years, yes, and then we were just hardwired, so they had to be close enough, and you're running cabling through conduit and up through the ceiling and
Sure.
all that stuff. And that's the way we've operated for the last, 3 or 4 years. The high school that I work at just went through a renovation, so I got lucky enough to be able to build a studio and a control room and my classroom basically from scratch. So all that was hardwired. But about a month after we moved into the studio, after hooking the whole rack up and everything, somebody said, hey, you should check this NDI thing out. And everything changed just like that. Now we're broadcasting from the auditorium, from the boardroom, from some science classroom, you name it, and you're just plugging into the network.
Yeah, it's amazing. So I'll get back into the old school stuff, right? So right away you think, okay, well, I'm on a gigabit network.
Yeah.
I've got, so many devices. How the heck am I going to get this thing? It's not going to work. It's just not going to work. And it works. It's so amazing. It really works. And I'm absolutely blown away with it. So, okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the program. Okay. So you guys just recently did a mock presidential election. Let's talk about that.
That was actually basically jumping straight into the fire. So that was a Monday before the presidential election. Our social studies department had every student in the building go to the media center library and cast their vote. And the Thursday before, our IT department finally got my TriCaster connecting to and talking to the wireless network in our building. Everything, that's all above me. Thank you to Gil and Jason back at Penn Trafford for doing that. But we tested it on a Thursday after school, ran it through its paces a little bit on Friday, and pow, we were doing a live broadcast. We did about 33 minutes of live coverage using iPads in the library, an anchor back in the studio, and 3 or 4 people in the control room running the switcher and the audio. We had custom graphics and a fake Twitter account, well, a real Twitter account, but for exit polling data, and it came together in 2 days. And that was the first time we ever used NDI.
Amazing. And so, budgetarily wise, for a school, for an educational institution, you're a public school, right?
Yes.
So budget's a big deal.
It's a very big deal.
And NAB Tech makes it a lot easier by using their technology.
They do.
You're purchasing the technology, but you're getting a lot more. You're getting a lot of bang for your buck.
Absolutely. Well, with the advanced edition of the software and NDI, absolutely the bang for your buck. I couldn't imagine having to piece that together with hardware and other software. Luckily, we had won a grant a couple years ago, and that afforded us the opportunity to pay for a TriCaster. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a TV program anyways. And then it wasn't that much of an upgrade to get Advanced Edition, and now we can go live just like a news outlet. It's not just our building; it's anywhere in the district that's on our network. It really boggles your mind if you think about it.
That's wild. So you certainly got to have students in your class that really shine and really stick out.
We do. I do,
and, it's really exciting to see stuff like that. A good friend of mine, Dave Burgess from Pinecrest in Fort Lauderdale, he's an amazing teacher and loves to work with kids. You got to have that gift of wanting to work with kids and be patient and all that. But there's some kids in that class that are shooting with red.
Oh wow!
I mean, literally, the parents have purchased them red cameras, and
don't have any of that.
It's just amazing to see some of these students really shine in schools. It's really exciting, and that's one reason why I have a passion for us, Broadcast Beat, to be involved with education as a whole, in the industry, because it's really important to make sure everybody's learning, and not just in educational institutions, but online or after school or whatever. So would you say that your students will be more equipped to work in the ever-evolving broadcast industry as compared to students from other schools?
I hope so, but we've got a lot of really good programs in Western Pennsylvania.
Right.
Can't speak to what they do on a daily basis, but I do my best to give them every opportunity to deal with the kind of stuff they'll work with when they get to college. So that first semester of their freshman year, they can kind of take off and roll their sleeves up, get involved in a leadership role, maybe get a little jump on an internship, any of that type of stuff. So that's the intent. That's what I try to do every day.
I assume you have students being producer roles and technical director roles and somebody managing the rundown, which I guess would be the producer, right?
Yeah, just our typical morning show is only 5 or 6 minutes, but there's 14, 15 students involved with script and teleprompter and weather graphics and lower thirds. Everybody's doing kind of their own thing. And then the fun thing about it is after everybody understands what they're doing, we switch and we start all over again from zero.
Wow.
And it just keeps going.
Excellent. All right. So, what tool or skill sets will they have in going into the real world coming from your school?
Well, I think from my program, it changes so much. Like you said, this NDI, it's so new, and it's nothing like what we were doing this time last year. So I think the skill set that they would hopefully that they take away from it is just roll with the punches, kind of read about it. Don't be afraid of it. Get involved with it. Learn how to use it, and see how it applies to the overall bigger picture. Because the basics are the basics. They're not going to change. But to tell a story, that's what it's king.
Right. So how did you? What made you fall in love with this industry, and how did you start doing what you're doing?
Well, prior to teaching, I sold radio advertising for a couple of years. Yeah, okay. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to go back to school. My wife's a kindergarten teacher, and so I was around teachers all the time. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to give this a shot. Actually, was hired as an English teacher, and luckily was transitioned into this role because I absolutely love it. Self-taught on the TriCaster, self-taught on Final Cut, trying to learn Premiere.
Right. Are you guys doing anything at the school where you're remoting from other locations, either wirelessly or anything like that?
We've done a few live remotes with when they live announced what the musical was going to be this year, which is a pretty big deal at our school.
Oh,
so
wow.
we were actually in the auditorium with the whole cast and crew of the Drama Guild, and the teacher announced it. And we didn't have to run any wiring. We just used an iPad with the NDI Cam app, and boom, that was it. The only thing we needed was a mic adapter.
But it was all wireless, right?
Yep.
And it looked great.
It did. It looked great. It sounded great.
That's amazing. So going back, you think going back to technology how it used to be. So our video switcher in the other room.
Yeah.
We've got the 8000. It's got an Ethernet cable and a power cable in the back. So think about how it used to be 10 years ago in broadcasting.
Even when I started, I would have to run 500, 600, 700 feet of cabling.
Yeah, even today, depending where you're at, you'll have a huge snake of cables coming off the back of that switcher, feeding physical video through it versus it being a touch surface that's actually controlling the video elsewhere in a digital fashion or whatever. It's quite interesting. So, thank you so much for being with us again, Steve Vinton. It's awesome to see what you've done with your school. And the guys at New Tech have raved about you, Scott Carroll and Gentry, and both of those guys. It's amazing. So Steve Vinton, film and television production teacher at Penn Trafford High School. Congratulations. Everybody give him a round of applause for what he has done with that school. It's awesome.
Thank you.
So thank you so much. We'll be back in just a few moments on NAB Show Live.
Hey, what's going on? Jamie Alexander here with Broadcast Beat, and I'm here at Gear House with my buddy Mark. How are you, Mark?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Really excited to be here. So as you guys can see, we're in some sort of a warehouse situation, but we're going to break it down for you. We're in front of this large mobile unit, and Mark, I want you to tell us all about what this is and why it was important for you to create this.
We needed to up the ante for the latest technology, which currently is 4K. Because of the complexity, the amount of sources, the amount of machinery needed to make this stuff happen, we had to go to something that was built with exactly the same materials as super yachts are made from, which is Columbus, which is a 4K truck right here. Needed to make this truck has a number of features in it that are very different to your typical truck you'll find in North America. Normally on the old trucks you crank things up with a handle, and basically two guys after about 45 minutes get very strong arms doing this to both lift the truck off the ground and pop out what we call an expando, which is this part of the truck. So what happens on this one is, going underneath, I will put this out, we have a remote control. And what this remote control does is we stand off, we hit a button, and this truck deploys 4 hydraulic legs, and then the whole truck lifts itself off the ground. When it's happy that it's level, it pops this side out here by itself, and the floor folds down. And this truck deploys...
Okay, this looks great. So this is the recording area. What makes this different and special on this mobile unit?
We utilize EVS, who are a well-known survey company, and what they do is these machines enable us to record multiple sources of 4K or HD, and we're able to record them so the client can walk away with their own hard drives of what we recorded all day, But more importantly, or as importantly, we also do replays here. These are typically generated at a station like this. What makes this different is that we're able to move these stations anywhere around this truck. And that is mainly thanks to a system we've implicated in full here called VSM. So VSM is made by a German company called Lavo. What's important about that is this truck has so many sources, video and audio coming into it. We handle 4,096 by 4,096 audio cross points, and then close to 1,000 video cross points. A human being is in charge of all this, and we kind of got to the point where honestly we're kind of asking too much of a guy, as you could imagine.
Right.
So we have a brain that sits over all this called VSM that enables us, once we've told the brain how many sources there are, what they do, where they go, video and audio, and if you add all that up, I just told you, you're looking at like 5,000 by 5,000
Right.
sources. A guy has to tell the brain at the beginning what these sources are, and once it's in, and that took us quite a long time to do, but the beauty of it now is when we want to move any source to somewhere else, and even change the way the panels are configured, so if someone's used to it a certain way and they want to move either down there or down the back end of the truck where we're going after, or anywhere in this truck, we just press a button and all of a sudden they get the same layout in front of them, they get the same panels, and we can do that very, very quickly and easily. And that makes people happy. The truck where we're going after. Effectively, this is a 15-person control room. Again, because of what I said earlier on about VSM and the way that we can manipulate and move easily certain positions, working positions, operational positions around a truck, we've kind of given people a palette, for want of a better word, of a production palette. So they walk in and we go, who do you want where? We're not telling them where they go.
Yes.
And that's a big, big difference.
So this monitor wall is pretty amazing. Is this in 4K also?
Yes, it is. This happens to be the only all 4K monitor wall currently in North America that we know of. We've done our research, so I think it's safe to say it.
Thank you so much for spending your time showing us this remarkable creation. And
Not at all.
gosh, so much more to come, right?
Yes, indeed. Yeah, keep them peeled for sure.
Okay.
Live from Las Vegas, this is NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast B.
Hello and welcome to NAB Show Live, broadcasting live from Las Vegas. I'm your host, Ryan Salazar, and we're so happy to have you here from the Met 360 studio powered by Newline. We have a really great guest today, John Carafin, founder and CEO of Lightfield Lab Incorporated. How you doing, sir?
Doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
So, NAB Show, what does it mean to you?
This show in particular is huge for us. This is actually the official debut of our company, Lightfield Lab. Last year we were here launching a holographic camera with a company called Lightro, and this year we're really focused on everything that happens after you capture the image and trying to get it into the home so you have at home a holographic television.
Excellent. So how did you start doing what you do?
A lot of sleepless nights. No, actually I have a long academic career back in the fine arts, which is kind of the complete opposite of what you would expect. But my entire professional career has been combining the science with the arts and doing things that are on that bleeding edge of science fiction.
Okay, and let's get into a little more detail about what Lightfield Lab does.
Sure. So we are a technology startup company, and we are currently focused on the first prototype of a holographic display that has the potential to be brought into the home, given the price points and the data transmission, all the software, all the hardware, everything that's required to enable that entire holographic ecosystem. So right now we're in that deep process of building that technology and then being able to start showing it to all of our key partners and vendors.
So when you say holographic technology, a buddy of mine from way back, John Textor, used to run Digital Domain. You know the name?
No, I used to work for him.
Oh, did you
I was
really?
at Digital Domain.
Oh, that's funny. I was actually
I ran one of the studios out there.
In Florida?
In Florida, yeah.
Oh, I was offered to assist in building the facility, actually.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So you know Ron?
Oh, yeah, Ron Martin.
Yeah, okay. All right, we go way back then.
Oh, that's
all right, let's
funny.
go grab
We're
a drink
having
later.
this. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, sorry.
So, So anyway, so holographic. The first thing I'm thinking of, right?
Tupac.
I'm thinking of Michael Jackson.
Sure,
what John Textor did. So is
Yeah.
that the sort of thing that you're doing?
No, not at all. It's actually something that's an interesting implementation of a technique called Pepper's Ghost. And what they do with that is they effectively will project a two-dimensional projector on a piece of glass or just a thin film that allows you to see through it but also project onto it. So it's like a screen. So that's technically speaking a 2D display. There's nothing really all that fancy about it, but it gives you a pretty cool illusion that you can see around it. What we're working towards, and we already have most of the all the materials of physics, everything's already proved in, is a full holographic display that will display every single ray to give you a physical point in space. So you're able to see it, and you will look at it as if it is truly there, either in front of the screen or behind the screen. So this is going into the deep future of display technologies. This is not a trick, not an illusion. It is actually the convergence of rays of light.
So it's more of a consumer technology?
Well, we're starting off using the implementation technique of going into the developer kits, you think of like what Oculus did, to make sure that our key partners, everybody that will be leveraging technology, gets to start working with it, figure out how to integrate. The ultimate goal is to go into the consumer market, but we'll start off more in the industrial and then go through that process into the consumer marketplace.
Isn't it so exciting, and you're right in the middle of it, how everything's evolved so quickly over the last 3 to 5 years, and in this space too, especially virtual reality, augmented reality, and whatnot, and it's just so exciting. So how do you? So I see here there's a note on here: holographic display, content creation, and delivery. So how are you delivering it?
So that's a great question. It's something that we have as one of our key focus areas for the company, because when you think about any holographic data set, just to take it a step higher, it's a massive amount of information. So what we're doing is creating a format. We're working with key partners on the content creation side in order to make that into a data stream that fits within a traditional commercial data bandwidth line, so over the internet. And that's something that takes a lot of innovation, a lot of work with real-time hardware processors on the encoding, decoding side. So that will give you the capability of having the content created either at the studios or at whoever is the developer of the media, and then be able to get it to the home without having some massive amount of back-end hardware.
So are you working with content creators as well?
That's correct. So we are working with a number of key partners right now. We're in the main process of focusing on getting the hardware up and running, but we already have many of those conversations started because we've done so much work with the studios. Obviously, I was doing visual effects and working with the studios in my past life, if you will.
So it would involve conversations with companies like Digital Domain or Sony Pictures or Entertainment or whatever.
That's absolutely right.
Right.
That's
okay.
correct.
That's excellent.
There's a huge amount of interest, particularly as you look at the live venue space. So think about theme parks, think about going to the movie theater, going to anything where you have a live performance. Having the ability to transport an entire group of people into another world is something that we keep getting a lot of interest in, and scaling the display to be the size of an entire cinema wall or the size of an entire room is something that we are focused on implementing in that first to second generation.
All right, so I have another note here. It says, what are the trade-offs between complexity, image quality, data storage processing requirements, and light field display considerations?
Wow, that's a fantastic question. So there is a trade-off between what is the image quality that you see, and that's the same thing for a traditional 2D display, where you have the trade-off of how pure, how raw is that data versus what is it that you compress it into to see it. So think of it like when you have your DSLR. You take your image, you can get a raw file, and then you can also get the compressed JPEG. And you already see there is a trade-off, but how significant is it? Will you ever see it on your display? That's the same type of consideration you get for holographic media, where you need to understand what is the amount of angular resolution, what is the sampling density, and how much can you compress that to get it into the home, but still have a massively compelling experience. And those are all the trade-offs that go into that format, into the ability to stream over the internet to the end user.
Okay, so if somebody's interested in your technology, how do they find out about you? How do they look you up? You have a website?
We do. It's lightfieldlab.com, singular lab. And we're more than happy to chat with anybody. If you have interest in what we're doing, we'd love to have a conversation.
All right, excellent. Again, John Carafin, founder and CEO of Lightfield Lab Incorporated. It's awesome having you on the show. Have a great NAB and welcome. We welcome your company. It's awesome to have you.
Well, thank you.
All right,
Thank you
we'll
so
be
much.
back on NAB Show Live in just a few minutes.
This is Tammy Dobruns from Master Control at WPLG TV in South Florida. I've been here for 33 years, and you are watching the NAB Show live.
Hi, everyone. I'm meteorologist Craig Adams from CBS 6 WRGB TV in Albany, New York, the world's very first television station. You're watching NAB Show live.
Howdy, I'm Jack Harris, a quasi-journalist with News Radio 970 WFLA, Tampa Bay. You're watching NAB Show Live.
I know broadcasters will continue to find opportunity in the choices we make. Choices that allow broadcasters to continue serving the American people.
And we'll see you at the 2017 NAB Show.
Goodbye, everyone.
Yeah.
Live from Las Vegas, this is NAB Show Live, produced by Broadcast Beat.
Welcome back to NAB Live, presented by Broadcast Beat. We're going to be talking about dailies today, the most important part, or a very important part of the production process, and something that's really been changing a lot, and we have two experts on hand to discuss it. Directly to my right is Randy Reck, Director of Product Development at MTI Film, and next to him, Ian McNenny, who is a product specialist also at MTI. So why don't we start off a little bit? MTI produces, creates products, and has a post facility, correct?
We do. We're both a post-production house and a software development company. So we sort of parlay the post-production side. We use some of our people as guinea pigs in our software side. We provide software that does both film restoration and dailies, IMF creation, DCPs. We use this software internally and continually develop it with a pretty big staff of developers. And we also sell it. So it's kind of best of both worlds.
So I'm curious, do you beta test any of these products in your post-production side?
Every day.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
We do. I mean, we go through builds daily just to constantly be keeping everything up to date, bug fixes, but also adding all the different features and new things to expand the product. So we definitely still have a job to do as far as dailies go every day in our facility, and we want to make sure that we tests each new version in a real-world environment.
I mean, it seems like it would be a tremendous advantage to beta test something in your own facility as opposed to a facility in Kansas or, New York City.
True. I mean, we don't only beta test in our own facility. We have a few different productions that are, going on around the country that use Cortex on set to do their dailies, and we're in constant contact with those operators every day. Any sort of bugs or feature requests they have, we try and listen closely to them on a daily basis as well.
So Cortex is the dailies product, correct?
It is.
Why don't you give our viewers a little tour of what Cortex does, what makes it the distinctive product that it is?
Sure. So Cortex is the modern rendition of our very early product. We started with a product called Control Dailies, which was the very first software file-based daily system in existence. It evolved into the latest product, Cortex, and at its base is a complete dailies system that does everything that you would need from set to screen, ingest, audio sync, transcoding, color correction, and ultimately rendering out. But that has been kind of a stable product for us for quite some time. Recently, we've added things like Dolby Vision metadata support for the HDR world, as well as HDR10 support.
Let's talk about HDR. I mean, that is, that's been a big buzz for some time now, and the buzz is even greater at this show. Yeah. I know just before we arrived, Samsung announced their version, which I understand is kind of 10 plus. Right, HDR 10 plus. But how many versions of HDR are we talking about? How many do you support?
You name it. Primarily Dolby Vision and HDR10, but we were supporting everything really that comes at us. And we're kind of tackling this in a new way. People see something like Dolby Vision metadata coming with the HDR master and wondering what to do with it after the edit is done. It's time to deliver, but there may be some changes that need to get done. We've come up with a visual way of actually seeing the metadata and editing the metadata in sort of a natural editor environment that really makes HDR finishing quite easy.
Well, that's interesting. Ian, you've worked with this part of it, I take it.
I have. It's something that, especially over the last few weeks, has really come together and is an impressive product. Is simply because with very little training and very little explanation of how to work with this metadata, I was able to sit down and recognize how to utilize the system and the edit tool to do what I wanted to do, because we treat it as though it's a piece of media in and of itself.
Well, explain it to me. I know what metadata is, and I know what editing is, but I'm not sure I understand why we would want to edit metadata.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a big deal, especially on the Dolby Vision side, where you might have an HDR master created, color corrected, ready to go. The standard dynamic range version essentially comes with one file in the Dolby Vision scheme, so that the metadata that comes with the HDR file defines what the standard dynamic range, the SDR output, will be. What we have found is at the finishing stage, there's often questions if I have to add 2 seconds of black, if I need a bumper, a slate. Do I have to then take that and go all the way back to a color suite and do HDR mastering again, and then go all the way back to editing or finishing and deliver it, package it? In our case, you don't have to do that. You're there, you've got an HDR package almost ready to deliver for Dolby Vision, minus 1 or 2 changes. Visually, you just tweak it, re-export the metadata if needed, package it up and send it on. There's no going back to the beginning necessary.
That sounds really, Ian, talk about that. You're the one that's doing this hands-on.
Right.
Can you From your point of view, what is it like being the operator and dealing with editing metadata?
Well, yeah, like I mentioned, I didn't really have to be walked through the process. So I just was able to take a piece of metadata, which essentially is an XML file that comes in, and drop it onto our timeline on top of the video media that we're applying the metadata to. And Cortex treats it as though it's a chunk of media on the timeline, on the track right above the video media, just like you'd usually expect. So once I'm in there and I've got the metadata laid out and I've got our cuts and breaks in there so that I know which segment's metadata belongs with the video, I'm able to make trims and extend things if there's something that's been mistimed, copy metadata from one section and paste it onto another section if there has been a mistake made, and like to Randy's point, it goes a step farther in allowing us to be able to fix that rather than have to go to the more expensive systems to get them to tweak just one tiny little thing.
So this sounds like you're saving, in your estimation, how much time are you saving by being able to do this in the system?
Potentially days, I would say.
Wow.
I mean, just with a longer piece, I mean, it costs a lot of money to go back to some of these color correctors and book that time, and so many different shows and whatnot are in there in any given day. You may or may not be able to do it today or tomorrow,
And then what happens at the end with the metadata? Is it archived with the media? How does that work?
Yeah, the metadata is essentially married to the delivery package. In the case of Dolby Vision, it's an MXF file that carries the metadata in an IMF-ish package, or IM-fish, as some people like to say. And MTI Film partnered with Dolby more than 2 years ago with this in mind, the idea that we could use our existing tool, Cortex, add features to it to enhance and speed up the delivery of Dolby Vision packages with the HDR metadata inside it.
Well, that sounds like an incentive to use the Dolby Vision then.
It does.
Right?
It certainly is, it's an easy way to go. HDR10 would be another format that we support, and we have similar tools. There are different challenges, obviously.
Let's talk about the challenges for other forms of HDR, which I imagine you run into in the dailies all the time, I'm guessing.
We do. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, it's the HDR. I mean, it's something that is thought of from the get-go.
Right.
But typically it's something, as far as I understand, it's done at a much later part in the process, and our integration of it into Cortex is a lot of. I guess it's on a familiar product. It's on a familiar platform. If you've brought in your media through Cortex and done your dailies through Cortex, the media that you need is already there in Cortex's database, and you don't have to go and ingest the media into a different system in order to do this Dolby Vision metadata editing. It's already there. All you need is your XML for your cut, and Cortex assembles everything for you, and you're ready to rock and roll with your metadata.
And Cortex supports ACES color workflow.
Right. I was just going to ask you about ACES. Do you have a lot of customers coming to you wanting to adhere to the ACES workflow?
More and more. And with HDR being used on set now, it becomes a handy way of dealing with the extended dynamic range. In addition to considerations on set for avoiding clipping and crushing, and everybody's doing this kind of new.
It's the Wild West, isn't it? It's the Wild West. Why don't you briefly describe what ACES is? I think many people know, but probably not everybody.
Okay, sure. Yeah, ACES is a end-to-end color pipeline definition that
was introduced by the Academy of Motion Picture.
By the Academy, right? And we're an ACES partner. It defines color space all the way through the process from going from a camera format into a color corrector or transcoder and all the way out to a delivery or to a display device. And before ACES came along, each facility would have a color scientist figure out what was best for all of these things.
And facilities would have their secret sauce.
Sure. Right. And ACES successfully standardized things like the color space coming in from all of these different cameras in a input display transform, which essentially gets any camera, any color space into a playing field that's equivalent across cameras, and then you can do accurate color correction.
And Ian, does this impact the end user, or is it invisible to the end user?
It does. We have built in all of the IDTs and ODTs for ACES, and those get applied pretty quickly on in the process. So we apply those transforms and then do dailies color, and then at a later point are able to deliver these pieces of media in a color space that's going to play nice in the ACES world.
And ACES being a floating point in the middle of the pipeline supports HDR kind of naturally, the extended dynamic range of HDR.
And you've been an ACES supporter for quite a while, haven't you? When did you join? When did you hop on the ACES bandwagon?
Early on. Before ACES 1.0 was out.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you were early adopters.
Sure.
And I think at that time, it's been a little hard for ACES to gain traction. Would you agree with that, or?
I think so. I think there are a variety of factors. In some cases, facilities like to have their secret sauce as far as color goes.
You're just like manufacturers like black boxes, right?
Sure.
Everybody wanted to have their secret sauce, but you don't play well with others if you have secret sauce.
But I think from a studio or broadcaster perspective, it would be really nice to have everyone play nicely together, so that one facility's color could just translate to another's, and we're all speaking the same color language from beginning to end.
So you feel now, do you see, Ian, both of you, do you see the industry or the other facilities wanting to adopt this because of HDR? Is HDR playing a role in people saying, hey, we better play well together? What do you think?
Yeah, I think HDR has accelerated the ACES conversation, because all of a sudden, if you're just working in a 10-bit DPX file, it's not enough, not for HDR. So then you say, well, what's beyond that?
Right.
And more bits, and who's got a handle on that? Well, ACES does.
I know one of the, I don't know how much this impacts you, but I know one of the concerns around HDR is the fact that there's all these different systems that are not compatible. And so, you buy a TV set with one version of HDR and you may not be able to actually get the HDR programming from another system. Right. How does that impact you in terms of dailies? Because people are watching with all different kinds of devices, aren't they?
Sure.
That's true. I guess ideally at that point when things like incompatibility of different devices and what to do about the wide range of things that are out there, hopefully you're well out of the dailies world by that point, as far as prepping all the footage. But again, having it all in Cortex and being able to go through everything in Cortex, you hopefully are able to do the things that you need to do in order to make it as widely acceptable as possible, or easily.
Well, you know how the old thing of directors that would want a VHS and they'd go back to their hotel room and stick it in the player for a TV that hadn't been adjusted in forever, and they hate the color because they're not seeing the real thing. Do you see kind of scenarios with that, if somebody wants to watch it on their phone or their laptop or what have you?
Yeah, it's I think still early days on set as far as monitoring goes.
Let's talk about monitoring a little bit. What are people doing for monitoring?
Yeah, there are a variety of HDR ways to monitor on set. For the most part, in the productions that we've worked with, the HDR decisions have been largely made later on in the mastering environment, where there's a proper HDR.
Yeah, that's been my understanding. Also, Amazon does that, I believe, right?
Yeah. So in the best case, you're not really setting a look that's done with the same way that you might have done in this SDR world, because the range is so great. So on set, really you're just preserving the high end and the low end, and if you've done that, you've done your job. And the HDR colorist farther down the pipeline is really going to then take off. So it's a learning experience for everyone, all of us.
And what about 4K? I mean, I know we focused a lot on HDR, but 4K is here, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is all the content that you're dealing with pretty much 4K now?
Well, a good chunk of it, yes. We've got maybe 1 or 2 shows that still do HD material, but most everything has gone 4K and above. Yeah, I mean, we have a few shows that shoot 5 and 6K, and then obviously things get transcoded down, but they like the flexibility of the additional size and everything like that. So it has definitely taken a jump as far as the size of the media, as well as the size of storage required per episode.
Well, and that's the issue when it comes down to dailies. I think we were talking a bit yesterday about, you need a pretty fat pipe for 4K and HDR and everything else. Is that problematic with dailies, where they don't have the internet that's fast enough? Or the big enough pipe?
It presents a challenge, I think, and some of it depends on where the production is shooting, and what kind of an internet connection is there. What we see is that dailies are often done in HD for a variety of reasons, and not UHD.
Right.
And
UHD meaning Ultra HD.
Right. Yeah. Almost 4K, 3840, 2160. So that's kind of a good balance, because in a HD resolution, you can get the same color decisions made. The editorial media is smaller, easier to get from the dailies location, whether it's near set dailies or in facility, to the editorial department, and cutting is easier in HD still. So
we're back to proxies, essentially.
We are, in a way, yeah. Only we've ratcheted up resolutions. So
right. So it's 2 steps forward and half a step back, maybe. I don't know.
Maybe
something like that. Yeah.
Sure.
Interesting, but I am wondering then if a lot of productions like to shoot in locations that may not at all have high-speed internet.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, that's going to be a problem if you're in a village in Romania, isn't it?
Yeah, and generally that's handled with storing the higher resolution media. Maybe you're not even delivering that every day. Maybe it's once a week, accumulating on a shuttle drive or mobile array.
Right.
The key media typically is the rendered editorial. That has to get to where it's going quickly, and if it's a feature, maybe visual effects, but not as critical as editorial media.
Interesting. So, Ian, or both of you, I understand that the latest version of Cortex also has some tools for the DIT. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Talk about that, please.
Okay. So we've had a free version of Cortex available for a couple of years now, that contains the sync tool, the color tool, the copy, and archive tools. Pretty much everything that a typical DIT would need on set to do an offload and sync and make color decisions, and then send that media along with a Cortex manifest over to either the post facility that's actually handling the dailies or near set operator who's got another Cortex system. And then with that Cortex manifest, you're able to recreate the Cortex job that has been on set with the DIT accurately near set or in your facility, so that you can continue to work as seamlessly as possible. So that's been available for a few years, and this year we're releasing DIT Plus, which is $95 a month subscription, or an NAB special. We're doing $595 for the first year, and it contains all of those same tools, the ability to read any camera formats that we can throw at it, as well as render ProRes, DNX, and H.264 media up to HD, up to 1920 by 1080.
Was this something that the DITs were asking for?
It's something that they definitely wanted, something where they could output files. It's having something that is just self-contained is helpful if you have something near set it's just the DIT is handing it off. But if a DIT is needing to actually cook out files for review or for anything like that, having something that can transcode at least to those 3 file formats was something that was exciting to them.
Yeah, we've taken some major features, boiled it down, and then offered it at a very reduced price compared to our Enterprise Edition, knowing that many DITs are, operating as essentially a small contractor on set, and we're giving a nod to that with this pricing. But we're also including things like dead pixel detection, which is our stuck pixel detector.
That's one of your flagship technologies,
that's right.
isn't it?
In our Enterprise Edition, we actually fix all of the defects, if you wish. But the detection is right there even in our free version, so that a DIT or even a camera assist on set or at a camera rental house could quickly QC their camera outputs before running into trouble where you might get a rejection later on from a particular delivery.
And you're finding that most of these productions do have DITs?
They do.
Yeah, well, that's good to know.
Yeah, typically.
So what does the future hold? I know that we're seeing a couple of companies at NAB 2017 that are talking about dailies in the cloud. Tell me, is that something, what do you see in the future?
We've done some cloud testing for dailies processes. What we found, interestingly, was kind of the way we're doing it now seems to be most efficient. The way we're doing it being generate the dailies, the sync, color correction, transcoding from camera to editorial and review media is as quickly as possible, closest to set as possible, and just get the smaller files wherever they need to go. When we're doing cloud processing, it's a little bit of a different approach where you have to get generally higher resolution media to the cloud. So the question again is, what is your connection out in the desert when you're shooting your production or wherever it may be?
Right. Well, we'll have to wait and see what the future holds. It's great to check in with MTI Film. I know you guys have an amazing, history of being involved in this field. What do you think MTI will seize as the future? If the cloud doesn't seem like it's ready, what do you think that MTI?
Well, I don't know that we're discounting the cloud. We're not putting all of our resources there, seeing a little bit more efficient dailies, at least elsewhere. We've got some interesting ideas about how to make all of this set to screen faster, cheaper, more efficient.
and all inclusive. That's the thing is Cortex started off, like I said, as a dailies product, but it has definitely expanded past dailies all the way from set to screen, and that's the theme of what we're doing at NAB this year, and it seems to have been at least our driving force over the last few years as to what we're innovating and what we're trying to bring new feature-wise to Cortex.
Right. Very good. Interesting. So, are you going to be having any time to walk around the show and see some of the other products out there?
I hope so. Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. Well, and what are you interested in? Any products aside from dailies?
Anything HDR is interesting to me,
yes,
personally and professionally. But we have a software presence in all the major studios right now.
Oh, that's interesting. So you are in all the major studios,
right?
Okay.
Is any major studio doing their own television dailies has many of our software licenses. So, being our core Cortex customers, we listen to them, and their suggestions have us looking in many directions, including packaging, IMF, DCPs, and everything HDR.
Right. I mean, that is something that, it's not really germane exactly to dailies, but the whole idea that this content is going to so many different platforms now at the end.
Yeah, and if a studio has 10 licenses of our software every night, churning out dailies like many of them do, why not use that same software maybe during the day to do IMF packages, HDR processing?
Interesting. What do you think, Ian?
I have used Cortex for a number of years, and I've from being a user to working with MTI as the product specialist, I've seen it go from something that I thought was incredibly powerful for what we were doing there on set to something that literally does take everything from beginning to end.
Wonderful. Yeah, it's very, very interesting, and it's certainly an important part of the workflow pipe, isn't it?
Yes.
Anything else you'd like to add about what MTI is doing here?
Well, we haven't mentioned the other half of our software lineup. I could just briefly say that we've been in the film restoration business for decades. We have DRS Nova that has some new features.
Well, I wish we could get into this because it's really, really interesting. But I want to thank you, Randy and Ian, for coming and talking about MTI's Cortex and dailies. And I'm going to be handing it over live to Ryan.
Stand by.
You got it?
Hey guys, this is Ryan Salazar. We have Shira Lazar. How you doing, Shira?
I'm so excited to be here.
So, you are the digital evangelist here, right?
Yes, I am. I've been here before in panels. Oh my God, and we're in the studio and we hear ourselves. I'm going to pretend I don't hear this.
So let's talk about the Meta Effect. What's the Meta Effect?
The Meta Effect is the convergence of media, entertainment, and technology. As a digital evangelist, I'm here to evangelize that message, to share it with the world as all these things are coming together. They need to exist together. While they're separate, in the past, media, entertainment, technology were looked at as separate industries, separate worlds. Now they need each other.
Right, so why now is this the theme?
Because we're in a time where all those worlds and industries are functioning together and energizing each other, and you look at platforms, whether it be Netflix or Hulu or YouTube, they wouldn't exist without technologists, obviously, but they also wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the storytellers and creators who build communities there. So whereas I think in the past I used to hang out with technologists that are like, oh, you're a creator, like, oh, we're separate, we can't talk. Now it's like we need each other.
Right. So as far as panels go, I'm sure you're involved with many panels here at the show, right?
Yes, they're using and abusing me here. I'm going to be at the America Ferrera luncheon. She's being inducted into the Hall of Fame. We're hosting one together. Do you know where
exactly? Yes.
The 360 Met Talks is going to be awesome. We got some great speakers there. We got some shows who are really pushing the boundaries around the Met effect. Brockmire, which started as a Funny or Die clip and now is a series on IFC. We've got The Man in the High Castle, the creators behind Game of Thrones. I mean, some of the big wigs and the shows that I love, I binge on, are here this year.
It's quite amazing, and there's typically about 100,000 people at our NAB show. It's such a crazy, cool event. The technology is awesome. I'm a bit of a social media nut myself, so how did you get started in all this?
Oh my God, I was born with social media in my hand. No. Well, I was a broadcaster, and I came at a time where I didn't really want to do the local TV stations, and I was auditioning and wasn't getting the jobs.
Right.
And social media and digital video was the only way for me to build my craft and work on what I love doing and my passion. Luckily, it wasn't just a launchpad to TV, but it became my niche and it became my career. And now more than ever before, just like the Met effect, all these worlds are converging. So it's not just about being on TV or traditional and then just being on digital. It's how can we utilize both worlds to build bigger audiences and create more impact.
All right, so right in front of the Met 360 studio, the heart of the Met effect, right?
Yes.
Here we are with Shira Lazar. I can't wait to chat with you more this week. Have a great show.
Yes, more to come. Stay tuned.